Today was a very early session. Ended up cranking out basically my writing before work today. I'm actually even recording this right before I leave. The main reason for that simply is that um, I am going to have no free time this evening to get my writing done. After work today, I'm actually going to be going to the movies, which I haven't done in a very long time. Uh, I wasn't even that interested actually in even going to the films tonight. Outside of the fact that just I have some family and a couple of friends that all want to do a big get together and go to the movies together. Um, yeah, we're gonna be seeing that new Marvel movie, the Ant-Man movie there, the Marvel movie there. Um, I have basically avoided, I think, most of cinema over the past, I think, couple of years now. And what I've avoided a lot has been more of like the superhero movies, and a lot of like really a lot of like the IPs that have been bought up by companies like Disney. Um, so this will be interesting to go back kind of for the first time and see really the first Marvel movie in quite a while. Um, it'll be I imagine it's gonna be kind of the same Drek. The reason why I had stopped watching a lot of this stuff was simply because a lot of the art today, man, it's just poor. Like a lot of the films today, they really are just absolutely cookie cutter freaking stories. Like it's the same basic plots with the same type of formula, and it's you get there's no heart to it. There's no heart. There's nothing beyond just the superficial to any of these stories. Um, they they give you these sort of plots that are again very basic. They have a lot of action, a lot of some comedy sprinkled in there, and man, that's it. It is the most shallow art form I think I've ever seen right now in terms of film. Like I cannot think of another time in cinema history, certainly where you had films that just dominated the kind of the box office that were just so devoid of any kind of real depth. And so for me, they haven't held my interest, so I've kind of avoided the cinema for quite a while. And occasionally I'll see a few movies, I think, throughout the year that look really good that I have to see kind of a few decent ones that kind of stand out amongst, I suppose, the greater pack. But most movies, and to be frank, this also translates a bit to television too. Like a lot of television as well, I simply avoid now. It doesn't not the idea does not appeal to me simply because so much of what I see today is just the shallow work. And for me, that's often been what has motivated me to kind of go forward with this writing process. At times when I have felt more, I guess, doubtful about my path, more animosity, I remember that there are at times things beyond myself, that their active writing is not necessarily the selfish thing, that as I've often come to view it, that there is an element of good writing, and within good writing, there is the idea that you are improving the genre. You're kind of raising the standard in a way. The bar as far as art goes gets slightly raised, I think, with every piece of good art that gets put out. Um, and so with myself, I do think in a way that I'm sort of contributing, hopefully, in the long run to that I'm making some small, basically drop into this bathtub that is hopefully kind of a revitalized art scene in America. That a lot of the genre, a lot of the superficial, the basic, um, surface level storytelling that will perhaps dwindle or get kind of washed out with newer work that gets put out there. And that's certainly my hope. That's certainly my hope. I see all the time that like if you're going to become a writer and you ever have any doubts about like the impact, understand that writing. I've used the analogy a lot about it's about football, right? Writing is basically taking the football and carrying it just a few yards down the field over the course of your career. That the idea being that you sort of pick up this football where others have left off. You take their techniques of other authors. You take their ideas, their concepts, their style. Um, and what you do is you pick up that football where they left it off, and you carry it just a little bit further down the field until someone else picks it off from you, and that chain kind of continues. And there's a similar hope that just in terms of just art in general, that especially with like obviously books and with film and all that, that the more good art there is, the more you're not so much carrying the football anymore, but you're sort of weeding it out. You're sort of just kind of, again, like the bathtub analogy, right? You're putting another drop into the bathtub, and that hopefully it begins to kind of overflow at some point with this very sort of excellent work, with work that has soul, that has meaning again. Um, and so, if you are someone that's on this pathway, understand that you are fighting kind of a war. You're sort of fighting a war against the bad art. That you're fighting a war against um, the superficial. That you are raging against mediocrity, and that your work does carry a bigger impact than simply just you getting your chance to tell a story and sort of express what's in your head. That it's not just some selfish act, but it is part of a grander thing. And so if you do feel that way, I congrats. And if you don't, I'd encourage you to start seeing your work in a much grander sense. Um, it's difficult at times, be very difficult, and with a lot of self-doubt, you often will question whether your work is actually good at all, whether your work actually is even worthy to be considered something better than the superficial, and that's something you have to answer for yourself. um, I think a lot of it comes from just the basis of what you do. That if you're putting a lot of time, effort into it, that you're going beyond just the first ideas, the first concepts, the most surface level concepts, but going deeper than that, you might um, find that your work carries a depth to it that maybe is not seen in most art nowadays. Um, but yeah, I mean, most work today is shallow. Most art today is very, very shallow. And hopefully I can make my own contribution against it. That I can maybe make my own little, again, put my little drop in the bathtub there, and perhaps help turn this sort of tide of mediocrity around. We'll see. We'll see. It's a much bigger problem than just more art. There's a lot of influence, the business side of things. The audience nowadays, you can make the best art in the world, but if the audience, if the average viewer nowadays is not as interested in your work, it doesn't matter. And that might just be taste as well. People's taste might have been dulled. It's possible. There's a lot of other things that play a factor in it, but I think that what we can do as artists and as creators is simply put out much better content and hope that we can get our own audiences and kind of build up others to eventually like our stuff, and perhaps reject more of the mundane works that seem to be so prevalent nowadays. Yeah, so that's basically a really roundabout way of saying that I had to write this morning because I'm going to a movie I really don't want to see out of some sort of social obligation. um, but anyways, I'm gonna cut it off here. I will see you all tomorrow.